To talk about these Detroit Pistons and the Milwaukee Bucks. I think a lot of people are sleeping on the Bucks. This is a brand new version of their team. All right, they've had their core, the Brook Lopez, Giannis Antetokounmpo. It was a Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton for the longest when they won that championship, and then there was a transition period. Chris Middleton started to get hurt. They needed to generate more offense. Drew Holiday couldn't quite carry the offensive load, and so they transitioned to Damian Lillard. Now, if I was honest with you, I thought that roster was going to take off. I thought they were going to win championship. Uh, I thought it was going to be unstoppable, and apparently it was stoppable. Damian Lillard just could not recapture the magic from Portland, and if anything, it was a reminder why sometimes if you're going to leave, you should probably leave sooner than later. Otherwise, just stick it out. Just stick it out. All that's to say is now you have a new rendition of this team. You got Giannis, you got Giannis, and you got Giannis. No, I'm just playing. But you also got other pieces on this team. Other pieces that, if I'm honest with you, uh, are legit, are legitimate pieces. Now, I know a lot of people will scoff at some of the roster construction aspects that I'm going to talk about, whether it's the guard rotation, whether it's the wing rotation, the shooters, or the lack thereof. But I think when you put it all together and you have a team that has everything to prove and a lot of contracts to get extended, you begin to see a lot of guys who are invested in making it work. And sometimes that's all you really need is the buy-in to make this work. If we're honest, I keep saying this all the time that the NBA is more talented than ever. Than ever. There are veterans who've been in this league a long time who are barely hitting 30, still very serviceable, but will get replaced by a young up and coming talent. You've got young up and coming talent who are trying to claw their way into a definable role within the NBA with some of these veterans who've already defined it. And so there's a lot of internal competition that allows for guys to really strive to make sure they maximize their opportunity. I think this is where the Bucks are. They have every incentive to make this work. Giannis wants to make it work because it's the legacy. It's one more year of being positioned to try to win a championship. Otherwise, you have to look elsewhere. But as we have figured out with Damian Lillard, the grass is not always greener someplace else. The grass is not always greener someplace else. You can't always just recapture the magic. You listen to interviews by guys like Dwight Howard, right? Even Chris Webber. You have a lot of high level talents who left the franchise that they kind of had the most success with in their prime, but really at the peak of their prime, that 29, 30, 31 range. And when they got to the new spot, they couldn't recapture the magic. This discussion is going to be about why I think the Detroit Pistons have to take the Milwaukee Bucks seriously. I want to dive into that in this video, but as always, if you enjoyed the video, smash the like button for me. Hit subscribe and the bell for notifications. Smashing the like button is a small thing, but it's a big thing for the channel. Really helps out with the algorithm. And I appreciate all the love and support, and that is a simple way to show it. Smash the like button. Now, let me just start off with this. It begins and it ends with Giannis. If Giannis is not performing at an MVP caliber level, which he has, I want to say for the past, 7 years? 7 years. If he's not performing at that level, this team does not have the same ceiling. I'm not going to say they don't have a chance because I still think he's going to be an excellent defender. He can score well in the post. He's still very skilled at what he does best when it comes to his agility and his ability to maneuver around defenders and score around the basket, even in transition. There are some plays more than others that require a little bit more explosiveness, but I do think that his game is going to age well because it really has more to do with his agility and balance combined with his ball handling skill and dexterity to be able to finish around the rim with both hands than it does necessarily being explosive, right? What's good, Marvin? It's good to see you back in the chat, bro. But it's to say that when you look at Giannis as he continues to age, there are certain things that we recognize that he needs around him. I know it's fair to say he needs shooting. Everybody needs shooting, right? But it's more than just that. Giannis can exist. He can be MVP caliber without shooting, just like LeBron, just like Jokic. It just makes the game easier. But really, truly, what he needs is a playmaker. And when I look at this roster, I'm gonna be honest, they don't have a lot of playmakers, which is why the main conversation coming out of Milwaukee right now, if you follow these other organizations, which is important to do if you're really going to understand how your team is going to perform, right? You have to understand they will tell you what to expect, and what to expect might be scary. Point Giannis Antetokounmpo. The same way we saw Point Zion when he was healthy, as scary as that can be. Point Zion Williamson. We're about to see almost a full season of Point Giannis Antetokounmpo. The reality is Kevin Porter Jr. is an extremely talented point guard. Ryan Rollins is definitely serviceable and has a lot of potential, but unproven. Cole Anthony, all right, he might be a cool little spark plug, even though most of us Piston fans really don't mess with him after he took out Ivy on that low dive. All that's to say is Giannis is going to be the key to unlocking the offense. He's going to be the one that they depend upon the most to not only set his team up, but to create easy opportunities. And above all else, the easy opportunity that they're looking to create is 3-point shots. One of the lowest output 3-point shooting teams in the NBA last season. They are committed to shifting that, which is why, in part, they were blessed by Miles Turner. Now, that whole situation we can get into in more depth, how they ended up with Miles Turner, even though they're an interdivisional rivalry. I told y'all Miles Turner was not as valuable as some of y'all thought, which is why the moment Tyrese Halliburton went down, the Indiana Pacers was like, yeah, they want to go in a different direction. We're going to save that money. All right. And Milwaukee picked him up, and I think that it's a great pickup for them. They needed to do something drastic to keep Giannis, especially after Damian Lillard tore his Achilles. And so it created a situation where it just worked. It just worked. Miles gets his revenge, right? Playing interdivisional rival Indiana Pacers 3-4 times a year, uh, adding in the tournament and potentially the playoffs. Playing next to Giannis Antetokounmpo guarantees a lot of wide open shots, and he's on a team that needs him, and is consistently in the playoffs. So when you combine those things, it's a great situation. But what that does is it creates an offensive opportunity where the Milwaukee Bucks are going to be able to spread the floor, essentially 4 out. And if you combine that with Giannis Antetokounmpo running the point, now you've got 5 out spread, and that's scary. Not only that, you're going to have that interior defense that's going to be able to close off the rim for most of the league. And so when you begin to see the construction of this team, you recognize the defense and 3-point shooting are something that we're actually going to be able to see probably a tick up. Now, look, I'll be honest with you. I'm not necessarily sold that Kevin Porter Jr. is going to turn the leaf, become this ultra reliable point guard, or even necessarily a good point of attack defender. But I do think he'll be bought into the process. I do think that Doc Rivers has kind of like this ability to be this father figure. And that's kind of a heavy word. And I'm going to be honest with you. When it comes to understanding what it means to be a father figure, there's so many layers to it. But it's to say that Kevin Porter Jr., he reminds me of Dennis Rodman. He could be a real mercurial, volatile type of a individual off the court, right? Uh, you would never mistake him for the team mature leader. And I'm not saying that in a derogatory way. I'm just saying he's a young guy who's still figuring out life and what it means to be responsible and understand the moment and make the right decisions. But it's to say that one thing we saw with Dennis Rodman was when you had an organization and a team of veterans and guys who were looking out for him, he functioned at his best. He was able to thrive. And I think that Doc Rivers, Giannis Antetokounmpo, right, even Bobby Portis, Gary Harris, Torian Prince, there's a lot of maturity on this team that's going to be able to look out for him. And I think that as a result, they're going to be able to get the most out of him. I also think that he's going to have a really dope set of like teammate friends to really rock with, whether it's Gary Trent Jr., maybe it's Ryan Rollins, maybe it's guys like Cole Anthony, even Kyle Kuzma. For all the tattoos and the fashion stuff that Kyle Kuzma, he's actually still pretty mature. Just because his game is inefficient doesn't make him immature. And I think that he's going to have fun teammates who are also mature teammates around his age, but also they understand what this game is. Kyle Kuzma won a championship with LeBron. He kind of understood those things of what it means to win. You got Gary Trent Jr., whose father played in the NBA. He understands what it meant to win in the NBA. So he comes in with that maturity. You got Cole Anthony, right? A younger guy whose father also played in the NBA, right? So you got young guys around him too. So he has a lot of the elements you would expect to get the most out of his talent. And then you got the supporting cast. Now I want to get into this supporting cast because I would say that I was impressed with what the Milwaukee Bucks did this offseason. They probably had one of the strongest off seasons of any team. Um, and I say that because they had to fill major voids very fast. Whether it's Brooke Lopez leaving, Damian Lillard leaving, right? You already had Chris Middleton leaving at the end of last season. You had a lot of voids in terms of production that they had to fill. Kevin Porter Jr. had some flashes, though he had a really rough playoff. He got a little bit better as the playoffs went on, but he's still learning how to win in this league, and he still hasn't proven it. All that's to say is they were able to go out and get some other guys. Cole Anthony was a great pickup. But some of the other pickups that I want to mention were probably just as important, if not more important. You got Amir Coffey, played with the Clippers from the time he came into the league up until this offseason. He's, how old is he? Let me pull it up real quick. He's 28 years old. Came into the NBA, I want to say after his senior year. He might have been undrafted or drafted in the second round. But he's a guy who understood how to play with veterans and winners. Was able to fit in with Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, James Harden, uh, Zubac, Batum, right? Norman Powell. He was able to fit in with veterans and immediately kind of get a little bit of a niche early on, right? He was a guy who could knock down shots, play good defense, be tough, but could be relied upon. And that's the key with this supporting cast. Giannis can rely on these guys. He's going to be able to rely on these guys. The next guy, you still got Bobby Portis, who was re-signed, who's been the consummate professional there for the longest. You got Torian Prince, who was there last season. You got Jericho Sims. You've got Andre Jackson, AJ Green, Kyle Kuzma. Now, here's the thing. What you begin to see is this is a full roster. This is a team that can go 9 or 10 deep. If I could list off the legitimate NBA players, I mean, we've seen you on the court, we know what you can do, and you can contribute to winning. We trust that at this point. We have an understanding of who you are. You got Giannis, that's one. Kyle Kuzma's two. AJ Green is three. I would even throw in Andre Jackson at four, especially if that three-point shot has come around. Then you got Miles Turner at five, Jericho Sims at six, Ryan Rollins at seven, Torian Prince at eight, Bobby Portis 9, Kevin Porter Jr. 10, Gary Harris 11, Amir Coffey 12, Cole Anthony 13. That's 13 legitimate players surrounding Giannis. You now have a legitimate team with depth. Now, I will say the guard position is probably their weakest, or I should say their most unproven. They're probably strongest at the forward position, right? They're pretty light at the center position, unless you move Giannis to center more, which I think he will be at a whole lot more this season. Or you'll see Miles Turner, Bobby Portis mostly at center. You'll have Kyle Kuzma playing that 3-4 forward role. He could play both at 6'10", and he has the athleticism. Gary Trent Jr., Torian Prince, Amir Coffey. You got most of those positions between forward and center covered. You can trust what you're going to get from that. And then you have the guard rotation. This is where it gets light. You got Gary Trent Jr., Kevin Porter Jr., Ryan Rollins, and then you begin to see, even with Cole Anthony, you're hoping that Gary Harris can give you a resurgence. So when you're looking at this roster construction, you see where the strengths are, You see where the weaknesses are. But then when you look at what this team has to prove, this is kind of the galvanizing point for the Milwaukee Bucks, is that all those guys have the world to prove. Bobby Portis just got his extension. He had a really rough season last year. I thought he was kind of unfairly suspended due to performance enhancing drugs. Essentially, he had something in his system he wasn't supposed to have. I don't think any of us believe that it was actually performance enhancing drugs. He had a whole bunch of stuff going on. Uh, Took some wasn't supposed to take, and he was kind of thrown off guard. Ended up being suspended out. I want to say like 25 games, right? So he's kind of got that chip on his shoulder that, like, you know what, that was some BS. I want to be there for my team. I think he's going to have close to a six man of the year type of performance, right? Look at somewhere around 16, 18 points a game, 7, 8 rebounds, kind of that Nas Reed type of off the bench scoring big man. You got Miles Turner, everything to prove. Indiana Pacers didn't want him. He's been there since he was drafted, and they just didn't want him. They did not want to do what it took to re-sign him. I understand it, but it still got to hurt. Gary Trent Jr. is still trying to prove he deserves an extension. Kevin Porter Jr. is trying to prove that he deserves to be in the league. Cole Anthony, right, came to the Orlando Magic and just fell on the depth chart year after year after year with Jalen Suggs, then Anthony Black. Now they bring in Tyus Jones. They keep saying you're not what we're looking for. No matter how hard you play, no matter what shots you make, you're just not what we're looking for. Gary Harris, a whole lot to prove as a veteran, still trying to stick in this league. So you got to recognize there's a lot of guys who are going to be bought in. And with Doc Rivers at the helm, look, say what you want. There are not, outside of maybe the top 5 coaches in the league, right? The top 5 legitimate coaches, right? You got Spoelstra, Tyronn Lue, you got Rick Carlisle. Okay. Then once you pass that top 3 threshold, you got guys like Kenny Atkinson. You got I'll throw, I don't know, Steve Kerr, I guess, to be nice. I'm not really too high on him as a coach. But you got other coaches out there like from OKC, Utah. But the reality is, how many of them have actually been to the NBA Finals? Been to the NBA Finals and won. Playoff experience with championship caliber players. Coached and won with superstars. There's only a few, a handful, right? You even see Nick Nurse struggling in Philly right now. You know what I mean? It's not always whose fault you think it is, right? So when we begin to really dig a little bit deeper, we recognize winning ain't easy. And some coaches who have proven that they've been able to win, given different circumstances, or the hard circumstance of coaching a superstar like Giannis Antetokounmpo, right? That I know how to coach a superstar. That's not something every coach can claim. Doc Rivers, love him or hate him, is still a top 10 coach in the NBA with championship experience, who's been in the league, played in the league, and players trust him. They buy in, they compete. Knowing you can check those boxes when a guy walks in, bro, is second to none. Because, whoa, didn't we think we were getting a winner with Monty Williams? Swore we was, right? Went to the finals with Phoenix. And then you recognize, oh, it was probably mostly Chris Paul. Yep, because the offense sucked before Chris Paul got there. And then it looked a whole lot better, right? And then he left. And then Monty leaves. And then Monty looks like probably closer to who we saw in New Orleans before Anthony Davis got there. I digress. Not everybody can claim they're that level of coach. The Milwaukee Bucks are going to be bought in, and they're going to be competing. They're going to be tough, they're going to be physical, and they're going to be more athletic than they've probably ever been since the early Giannis era when he had Jabari Parker. I don't know if y'all remember him out of Duke. Him and Giannis was pretty scary out there, and they had a lot of other young athletes. This team is going to have a lot of young athletes. Kyle Kuzma, Kevin Porter Jr., right? They've got Amir Coffey is a decent athlete. Andre Jackson is a high-level athlete. Jericho Sims, high-level athlete. Ryan Rollins for his position is pretty athletic. They've got a lot of guys who are going to be able to compete over the rim and get out in the open court, in the open floor, get out in transition and really push the pace. They're not going to be the slow walking it up team anymore, right? That Drew Holiday and Damian Lillard had kind of modeled for winning around Giannis, right? There's no more Brook Lopez trailing up the rear. You've got a team that's going to be able to move, that's going to be able to get easy buckets, get back in transition while also competing on the offensive glass. When you begin to combine all those things, you recognize that, oh, these Milwaukee Bucks isn't who we're used to seeing. It's not just going to be Giannis and a slow pace, physical offense and defense. Actually, it's going to be more of an up tempo team that's looking to spread you out, shoot threes, get to the rim, penetrate and kick. And yes, it's going to be highly dependent upon a couple of guys, Kevin Porter Jr. and Giannis primarily. But if those guys can give you 65 plus games, let me be honest with you. If those two give the Milwaukee Bucks 65 games, don't be shocked if the Milwaukee Bucks are a 43 to 45 win team. Don't be shocked. They're somewhere in that 4 to 6 range of the playoffs. Don't be shocked if Kevin Porter Jr. looks like a legitimate starting level NBA point guard. And with his talent, you have to start thinking about him as an all-star caliber player. If you combine that with Giannis Antetokounmpo, they'll be as scary as anyone. How things roll out. It really is about matchups. Who has the easiest route? Who has the right first round to get into the second round easily, to have enough energy to overcome and win that series in 6 or 7, so that by the time we get to the Eastern Conference Finals, they're fresh and ready to go. And then it's anybody's game to get to the NBA Finals. That's what we saw with the Indiana Pacers. If Detroit is going to overcome Milwaukee, they better be locked in from day one. I'm going to get into some of these other teams. You still got Cleveland, you still got Indiana. Indiana, don't sleep on Indiana. I'm going to get into them tomorrow. But as always, I want to know what you all think. What do you think about these Milwaukee Bucks? What do you think it's going to take for the Detroit Pistons to overcome the Bucks? Get at me in the comment section. I'm going to get at y'all there. As always, if you enjoyed the video, smash the like button for me. Hit subscribe and the bell for notifications. Look, do something fun today. Do something that feeds you as a human being. Don't just go to work unless you love your job. Don't just go to work and come back home and turn on the TV. Go for a walk. Go shoot some hoops. Go to the gym. Go to a movie. Seen the new Demon Slayer movie? It's kind of lit. Go do something that feeds you. Enjoy your life because life is worth living.